Hi, Bother Brigade. Here's what's bothering me today. In yet another typical example of Canadians being smug for no good reason, I have seen way too many posts in the past few days from people and on a variety of social media platforms and, at work and stuff. I have heard way too many of my fellow countrymen say something along the lines of, with regards to Roe v. Wade in the States, oh, thank goodness that's not us. It couldn't possibly happen up here. I'm so glad we're better than the Americans. So here is me taking this notion to task, but rather I'm going to let other people speak on the subject. If I hear one more white Canadian woman smugly say it won't come to this, we live in a country where Indigenous women who live outside of 3 or 4 urban centers have trouble accessing abortions whilst simultaneously living in a country where we are forcibly sterilized. Yeah, don't forget, I did that handy little playlist a while back. It was a series, and it's The Dark Side of Canadian History. It'll be probably in an annotation in the description down below. And that was a series delving into all the terrible aspects of Canadian history that we don't talk about, including, of course, sterilized Indigenous women, which still happens to this day, unfortunately. Canada was caught still sterilizing Indigenous women in 2019. Stop saying this stuff doesn't happen here. And yeah, unfortunately, this stuff does happen here. It's just that, it's the Indigenous people, so we don't care about them. That's why we also haven't heard nary a peep of the fact that over 10,000 unmarked graves of dead children at residential schools have been unearthed so far. But that would just make us feel bad and have to evaluate ourselves and our culture and what we believe in and our history. And we can't have that now, can we? It was fine to be sad for the first few hundred, but no one wants to be depressed all the time, am I right? So there's that terrible aspect, but again, we're here talking about this whole notion of Canadians feeling weirdly smug about what's going on with the likely overturning of Roe v. Wade down in America. Because yeah, sure, abortion is legal up here, but let's delve a little deeper into why it's not necessarily as great as some people may think it is. If you think Canada doesn't have problems with abortion access, go ask someone from the East Coast about how to get one. Yeah, the East Coast has a grand total of 2, maybe 3 abortion clinics in a vast geographic area. So, let's just take a look at the map of where you can actually get access in this country. So, the number of dedicated abortion clinics per province or territory, there are exactly 0 in any of Canada's 3 territories. There are only 5 throughout BC, 2 in Alberta, 0 in Saskatchewan, 2 in Manitoba, 11 in Ontario, 46 in Quebec, 1 in the entire province of Newfoundland and Labrador, 1, I believe, in PEI, 0 in New Brunswick, and we're going to come back to that later, and 1 in Nova Scotia. So, sure, there's more in the more populous areas such as Quebec and Ontario, and then, of course, BC, but it's clearly not exactly brimming with access, especially if you're in one of the East Coast provinces, one of the Prairie provinces, or if you're in any of the Northern Territories. So already the notion should be a little more, faded in our mind in terms of abortion access across the country, right? We have vast geographic areas of this country where you cannot access abortion, or at least you can't access it safely. But there are still weekly limits. So let's go into a little bit of the nitty-gritty there. Don't forget, even though abortion is technically legal at any stage in Canada, most provinces only perform the procedure up until a certain number of weeks, particularly low in the Atlantic. Abortion is not fully accessible. So in Alberta, you can have an abortion up to 24 weeks. In British Columbia, same 24 weeks and 6 days on top of that. In Manitoba, you get 19 weeks and 6 days. In New Brunswick, it's 16 weeks. Newfoundland and Labrador is 15 weeks. Northwest Territories is 19 weeks and 6 days. Nova Scotia gives you 16 weeks. Nunavut gives you 12 weeks. Ontario has 24 weeks. Prince Edward Island is 12 weeks and 6 days. Quebec is 23 weeks. Saskatchewan is 18 weeks and 6 days, and the Yukon is 12 weeks and 6 days. And feel free to, go back and pause so you can read the flavor text aside from there that goes a little bit more into detail, but the longest, right, is 24 weeks and 6 days. So not exactly, a long period of time in terms of figuring out the health of the baby or the fetus or development, or if you're developing like problems with blood clots and stuff like that. Like, it's not exactly a smooth, simple cakewalk and just anyone can get an abortion at any time, because that was basically the compromise, right? When this was first, enshrined as a constitutional right. It was, okay, so fine, abortion's legal, but we're going to make you jump through some hoops to do it. And, well, you may not even have access to it. And so you may need to travel to another province or to the other end of your province. And Canada is a very big country. So, maybe you can't always get the time off and stuff like that. So, yeah, whatever, fine. I guess I'll just have the kid, right? So those are the very real and present problems with our current system and abortion access. But it also gets, unfortunately, worse when you realize that there are people like, here in Ontario, the progressive conservative MPP, Sam Oosterhoff, who said that he wants to make abortion unthinkable in our lifetime. So that's a provincial politician, but there's plenty in the federal Conservative Party that are more than happy, if they ever got the opportunity, to repeal abortion because they really don't care for that. That goes against their sacred values. Never mind the fact that most Canadians agree that abortion should be a right. They would still want to overturn it because that's what they want to do. Never mind actually representing the will of the country that they claim to represent. So what can be done about this? Well, Action Canada has a lovely little thread, which I will link down below. Action Canada, by the by, is a progressive pro-sexual health and rights advocacy group that operates across Canada. So, of course, one of the things I say is hey, come and support our work, right? So if that's something you want to do. Again, I'll provide a link to everything, but that's kind of their first point of you can help us. But they also have other great ideas for showing up for rallies in support of abortion rights. They have been happening in Canada, both, just to show people that, hey, this is an issue that matters to us, and also right now showing solidarity with our American friends south of the border. They also suggest supporting and following organizations who are fighting for racial justice, disability justice, economic justice, migrant justice, basically all the various justice causes. They ask people to also do some due diligence with regards to politicians. So maybe find out from your politician, tweet them or, comment on their pictures or their posts on social media, send them an email, call into their office, find out what their position is on this issue, right? And there's even more suggestions and ideas that they have that I'm not even mentioning here. Again, just, go check out the link and go through the thread. Find them on various other social media platforms. I think they're also on Facebook, Instagram, and stuff like that. So, there are people and organizations in Canada, whether it's Action Canada or some of the others that they linked and mentioned. There are plenty of groups and organizations and communities that are working to keep access available, safe access, by the way, available for people in Canada. However, the problem here is that a lot of people have this false sense of security. And I'm hoping we've dispelled that right now. Between the actual, looking at the map and everything, the lack of access to abortion that women or just people with vaginas have in Canada, and how the actual access is one of the many hurdles, the other just being, in some cases, right, a very short period of time for weeks where they will actually pay for or cover it or allow it, which means you then may have to travel to another province or a country in order to do this, right? And then it all blatantly ignores the fact that you have people like Sam Oosterhoff who would happily see abortion overturned in spite of the will of the majority of people. So no, dear people of Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and wherever else I've seen and heard of this being talked about, we aren't really blessed up here in Canada. It's actually a very grave situation that should get some more attention right now in this country. But understandably, everyone's really focused on Roe v. Wade down south. But it's not exactly like the situation is great up here either. And the fact that so many of my fellow Canadians seem to think that everything's just hunky-dory up here, when, as we've already shown, it so clearly isn't, is definitely what's bothering me today.